Dumelang Sanbonani and greetings. Welcome to our True Crime South Africa podcast, True Crime with Stones Q, where we usually report on under the radar, unreported, underrepresented cases in South Africa. However, we do cover the more well-known cases as well. And today we bring you a deeply tragic and heartbreaking story out of Gauteng, South Africa, in the Vaal region, the south of Johannesburg, involving a young life lost on what was meant to be a summer boat cruise with friends. And yes, let us remember, please, let's be kind in the comment section, because this is really fresh, like a couple of days fresh. And these are real people, real lives, real families, fresh wounds. So let's just go through this episode. It's probably going to be a short one because no arrests have been made. Investigations are still going on. Like I'm saying, that it is a couple of days old, about 4 days at most from the beginning of this case. And our hearts truly go out to the family, the friends, and the community affected by this loss. On Friday, January 9th, 2026, where most people deem this to be the beginning of their new year, 17-year-old Thomas Junior Sithole, a scholar at Hoërskool Driëhoek in the Vaal Triangle, left home like many teenagers, likely looking forward to a weekend break after school. He joined a group of friends for a private boat cruise on the Vaal River, which is a popular spot for summer outings in the region. But what was meant to be an afternoon of fun swiftly turned into a nightmare for Thomas, his family, as well as his community. Now, keep in mind that it is reported that this wasn't the first time that these kids have gone on this type of cruise. And probably this friendship was not new. It probably wasn't strangers going out. So what happened on the boat? So according to multiple sources, Thomas was with a small group of friends and reportedly one of the boys' fathers on a private boat trip along the Vaal River. The boat was said to be relatively small and seating changes may have occurred that afternoon. And at some point, Thomas went missing from the boat and only realized when the group was returning to shore, allegedly. There are conflicting accounts surrounding the circumstances. The exact moment when Thomas disappeared isn't precisely known publicly. Some reports suggest he might have fallen overboard or slipped into the water, but the question is, ganjani, considering that this is a small boat as well. And I just bumped into something on the social streets, so the power of social media, which is raising questions for me. Uti, actually, what happened here? Like, what was this big thing that was supposed to happen? So different media houses have confirmed. I'll just keep the identity of this person private. I'm not too sure if they would want to hear that the story was out there, but I think let's cover this towards the end. So Thomas's family raised serious questions about why were they not informed immediately and why the police station did not initially have a case registered on the file. They only learned of his disappearance the next morning, which was on Saturday, and this thing happened on Friday. Even though there are reports that say that the parents were called, but everything is hearsay at this point, honestly. So they described this delay and the differing versions of events as a bit fishy and are calling for clarity and accountability. I think as a parent, if you are custodian of children, I think you need to take better responsibility for that. But we're not pointing fingers or anything at this point until we know exactly what happened. So for 2 days, police, search and rescue teams, including divers from the SAPS Water Wing, scoured the Vaal River for Thomas. Family, friends and relatives gathered anxiously along the riverbanks at Abrahamsrust, but I think it's Abrahamsrust in Afrikaans, Resort, where the operation was concentrated. And on Monday, January 12th, a tragic development took place. The search ended with the discovery of Thomas's body in the river by police divers. and the family had to identify him, and it is unfortunate that he was positively identified. I know some people feel that, okay, at least body niliteng, because yeah, I think one of the worst case scenarios would be never discovering a body of a loved one, not giving them that dignity and that final closure to just have that body there. And yeah, those who knew Thomas describe him as a calm, collected, and lovable young man with big dreams and a sweet soul. And a friend shared that he was adored by many and that his untimely passing has left devastation in the hearts of peers and loved ones. However, the investigation still continues, and the police have taken over the case and transferred it to the Sasolburg station in the Free State. So it's if you're familiar with Vaal, you know that back in the day, I think all these places, they were either under the Free State. We can't say that they were under Lesotho, but they were under the Sotho region of these Bantustans formations, right? So Sasolburg is just outside of Vaal, and I think Batho Vaal are more familiar with Sasolburg. And if you're not familiar with demarcations, you'd also say, okay, this is in the Vaal. But demarcation-wise, it is in the Free State region, and these cops have taken over. The cops in this jurisdiction have taken over. Okay, so they have not publicly concluded whether the incident was a tragic accident, negligence, other factors involved, or a deliberate action, and questions still remain. Where exactly Thomas went missing on the river? Why was there a delay in reporting? Whether all safety precautions were followed, what the group on board witnessed, or known details. Would that not be the logical reason, first of all? And at this point, the family are saying this is fishy, and they're calling for truth, transparency, and justice, And I think, I think that this we should mention, considering the nature of our country, the history of our country. So yes, the questions that are lingering, but let me rather read them to you guys from a source, right? Somebody who is close enough to the case. And I think from that, we can call for a conclusion. Like I'm saying, it's going to be a really, really short episode. And yeah, we will continue, I guess, keeping our ears on the ground to see if there's any further developments. At this point, some arrests need to be made, especially with the behind the scenes that are not reported in mainstream media. So this person says, "Hi, I just wanted to say that I am a child of one of the police divers that went looking for him, and know some of the other kids personally. They did try to call his parents immediately, but they didn't pick up. And yes, the parents that took them on a boat were white." So the question that I think we're all thinking of. It's very suspicious because when my father interviewed the boat driver, he had blood on his hand and he said he didn't know where it came from. Another boy also had blood on his knee and said it was from an accident a few days ago, but the blood was fresh. So I'm mentioning this because of the nature of the country that we're in, the historical events of this country, and the racial tension that's still lingering in the air. And if you are somebody like myself who grew up in regions that are predominantly Afrikaans, I know for myself it was a culture shock moving from a more colonially influenced, an English influenced area to now residing in an Afrikaans area, And I remember moving, it was such I was really nervous, So for somebody who grew up in Pretoria, I'm thinking Vaal is the same atmosphere. I've been to the Vaal Triangle before, different regions in Vaal, and that same atmosphere, of heaviness, of Afrikaner entitlement is heavy, Vaal, and it's so unfortunate. And I went to an Afrikaans school as well, I first heard of the K word in the Afrikaans school in grade 8, being called that. And for me, it was just a culture shock how the black people were okay with that, And from the region where I come from, we don't fly with that, So I don't know if Pretoria is passive. I don't know if they were more mentally pacified to be okay with such, because a lot of people in Pretoria, a lot of black people in Pretoria are more fluent in Afrikaans, The colored people in places like Hoërskool, so they would rather be deemed as Afrikaans versus maybe English, but I'm not going to go into that. I don't know the dynamics of the colored communities and their cultures and everything like that. But like I'm saying, this is very thought-provoking, and yeah, also leather wheels of justice when it comes now to racial differentiation. They seem to be different. And like I'm saying, Umontwadi, and how they're mentioning that this boat was so small, but people don't know what happened. This again seems like not to compare, and obviously the magnitudes are obviously not the same, but it's like the whole Senzo and Kelly Kumalo and the rest kind of case. Why are the people that are there not being put on trial, But anyway, trial has not begun. Like I'm saying, it is at most 5 days old by the time that you guys will be bumping into this one. And just to wrap up and final thoughts, I think, I think summertime, and at that time, so these kids are probably grade 11, grade 12. Yeah, so I went to school early. So 17, I was already in matric, and I was already done, this would be something that I'd probably do, except that I don't know, something weird happens in high school, even though we grew up fine in primary school and we interracially integrating and all of that, for some reason, and not even racial tension or anything like that, but somehow we all sort of gravitate towards our own races, So I don't know if it's relatability. I don't know. It's something that I have just observed, and no beef or anything like that. But obviously there is outliers, that there is people who maybe don't live in the township and would be associating with their friends in suburbia, and unfortunately, fortunately, whatever angle it is, if you are in an area that is predominantly more racially peaked in a certain direction, your friends obviously would be from those people. So every summer, it brings moments of fun because the sun is out, like enjoy with friends, especially for teenagers who are eager to enjoy a break from school, because school is about to start in a couple of days in South Africa, or in the inland regions. I'm not too sure, coastal regions, when they're starting. But this is really tragic, and it's heartbreaking, and it's just a reminder of how life can turn like this in seconds, And as investigations continue, Thomas's story is not just one of loss. It is a call for discussion about youth safety, why other parents are on some no sleepovers completely, and if you're unfortunate, like some parents where your kids are obsessed with sleepovers, I now get parents who are on some no this, no that, because honestly a lot can happen, go to sleepovering, not necessarily on a boat cruise or a trip, guy. And I think parenting is so tricky, because now, yes, you do want your kids to have a social life, but then now, should something by accident also happen, now there's that consistent blame on the parent, As much as I like being parent to like every kid who's under my care, but it can get to be tricky, And yes, we will continue to follow the story as it develops and bring you updates. And if you or someone someone in close proximity, even if you want to be anonymous, if you have information that might help the investigation, please do contact the local authorities, reach out to the cops. And thank you so much for joining us. If you like how we tell the stories that we cover, like I said, we usually do the under the radar cases, but I feel this one is very important, because giddy question, and it's scary, especially if maybe you are recently a teenager, or you're a parent to a teenager, and you're thinking, yo, and this illusion that we're still in of this whole rainbow nation and whatnot. Like, my dear guys, and considering that it's not reported in mainstream media, and we're seeing from different platforms, people are saying, no, the reporters left, but the police was still there, which might be true because it's reported now that it took a couple of days for this team to find the body, from Friday, Saturday, and then only today on the 12th of January are we getting this information. But please do like, please do share, please do subscribe, please do comment on the comment section, engage with us there. Thank you for the comments, and yeah, we do know some people are trolls, and listen, I think I've been in the social media space for long now. Yes, I'll always respond kindly, but not now when it comes to the victims. Now, let us remember, and let's not victim blame or anything like that. Let's not be crazy. Like, these are really sensitive things, and I guess to some regard it's about awareness and whatnot. But if you like my balabaling and the storytelling here, please do subscribe. Let us grow this community. Let's see what we can do, and maybe future-wise be able to help with the craziness that is happening right now in this country. But thank you so much for tuning in. See you on our monthly true crime stories. And yeah, if you want more stuff aligned with spirituality and knowing yourself, please hop on to our sister podcast, Stoned Queer Podcast, where we speak spirituality, African calendar, and things that help you align and be a better person, but we do lament as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and truly deep condolences to the family and those that are close to the boy himself. Thank you so much, and we're out.